The morning sky over Seoul turned dark as massive alien ships blotted out the sun. Commander Park Ji-woo pressed his face against the reinforced glass of the Defense Ministry bunker, watching something that made no sense. The ships were not firing weapons or dropping bombs. Instead, they were lowering platforms filled with desks, filing cabinets, and beings in neat uniforms carrying briefcases. "Sir, are those office workers?" Lieutenant Kim Dae-ho asked, squinting at his surveillance. Monitor Ji-woo grabbed his binoculars. The aliens stepping off the platforms looked like oversized insects wearing business suits. They had multiple arms, each one perfectly designed for holding stamps, pens, and clipboards. They moved with the efficiency of people who had done this exact same thing many times before. The lead alien was taller than the others, with 6 arms instead of 4. He wore what looked like a medal made of paper clips and carried a briefcase that seemed to contain the entire universe. When he spoke, his voice reached every television, radio, and phone on Earth simultaneously. "Greetings, inhabitants of designation Planet 2848," the alien said in perfect but strangely formal language. "I am Chief Processor Vactor of the Galactic Administrative Collective. Your world has been selected for integration into our administrative system." President Kim Tae-yong sat in the emergency meeting room, surrounded by his top advisors. Everyone looked confused. This was not how alien invasions were supposed to work. There were no death rays, no demands for surrender, no dramatic threats. It's just a very polite alien with too many arms talking about paperwork. "Your species must complete Form 7394B through 12847C within 30 standard cycles," Baker continued. "These forms will register your planet, catalog your population, assess your resources, and establish your tax obligations to the collective." The forms began materializing on every government building, military base, and public space on Earth. They appeared as solid holograms that could be touched and written on. The stack in front of President Kim was taller than he was. Each form was written in 17 different alien languages, with tiny footnotes that referenced other footnotes, referenced other forms, creating an endless maze of bureaucratic complexity. "Failure to complete proper documentation will result in administrative penalties," Victor explained. "We have successfully integrated 2,847 worlds using this efficient system. Resistance is ... inefficient." Foreign Minister Lee Soo-ben picked up the first form and immediately got a headache. It was asking for the categorical classification of atmospheric, moisture regulation, compliance, and required references to forms. That did not seem to exist yet. "This is impossible," she whispered to President Kim. "Some of these forms ask for information about forms we have not seen yet." "That is correct," said a smaller alien who had somehow appeared in the room. "Efficiency requires understanding all forms before completing any forms. We will establish processing centers to assist with your queries." Within hours, the aliens had set up processing centers in every major city on Earth. These were not military installations, but looked exactly like the worst government offices humans had ever seen. Long lines of confused people waited to ask questions about forms that made no sense. The alien workers behind the desks seemed genuinely surprised that humans found their system confusing. "Form 4291 requires your species' official position on interdimensional tax policy," explained one alien worker to a frustrated human. "This is basic information." "We do not have interdimensional tax policy," the human replied. "Then you must file Form 8832J to request an exemption, which requires completion of Forms 3445C through 3448TF. First, where do we get those forms? You must request them using Form 2234B. Where is Form 2234B? You receive it after completing Form 1892A. The human walked away screaming. 300 miles below Seoul, in a secret military research facility, Dr. Lee Min-ho was not thinking about forms. He was thinking about the prototype power armor suits that had been gathering dust in the corner of his lab for 2 years. "Minho, are you paying attention to this?" asked General Choi Min-soo, pointing at the news broadcast, showing aliens setting up more processing centers. "Oh, I am paying very close attention," Minho replied, running his hands over the massive titanium. "Plating of the nearest armor suit. I think they can conquer Earth with paperwork." The armor suits were originally designed for deep-sea mining operations. They were 12 feet tall, weighed 8 tons each, and were powered by fusion reactors. They looked like mechanical dinosaurs built by people who believed that bigger was always better. "These aliens have never met a species that responds to complex problems with simple solutions," Minho said, powering up the suit's systems. They conquered 2,847 worlds with filing cabinets. They are about to meet the 2,848th world that believes in a different kind of filing system. The armor suit's eyes glowed red as it came online. Its massive hands were designed to crush rock and bend steel. "Oh." Minho smiled as he climbed into the pilot's seat. "Let me show them what human efficiency looks like." 3 days. His eyes were red and his hands shook from too much coffee, but he kept working. Around him, his team of engineers moved like ants, welding metal plates, connecting power cables, and installing weapon systems that were never meant to exist. "Hand me that plasma cutter," Minho called out to his assistant, Dr. Park Soo-min. She was the only person who understood his crazy ideas and was crazy enough to help build them. "The aliens set up another processing center in Busan," she said, passing him the tool. "They brought their own furniture this time. Apparently human chairs are not designed for beings with 6 arms. Minho laughed despite his exhaustion. "Right. Think we are going to fill out their forms. They have no idea what we are actually filling out." The power armor suit in front of him was a monster. It stood 12 feet tall and looked like a mechanical giant built from spare parts and determination. The original design was meant for workers who needed to crush rocks on the ocean floor. Now it was being turned into something that could crush much more than rocks. Lieutenant Han Sehojin burst through the lab doors, carrying a tablet full of satellite images. "Sir, you need to see this. The aliens are not just setting up offices, they're building entire bureaucratic cities." The images showed alien structures that looked like the worst government building ever designed, but multiplied by 1,000. There were buildings dedicated to different types of forms, warehouses full of filing cabinets, and parking lots filled with vehicles that looked like mobile offices. "They actually brought filing cabinets," Sehojin said, zooming in on one image. "Thousands of them. Each one is labeled with numbers and letters that make no sense." "How many processing centers do they have now?" asked General Choi Min-soo, walking into the lab with his usual serious expression. 47 in South Korea alone," Sehojin replied. "They're building more every day. And sir, their enforcement officers are ... strange." The enforcement officers were the aliens' version of police, but they looked like they had never enforced anything stronger than a library fine. They were thin, nervous creatures who carried clipboards instead of weapons. When humans asked them questions, they would check their manuals and make notes about compliance irregularities. "Sir, I watched one of them try to arrest a man for not having proper identification," Sehojin continued. When the man asked what proper identification was, the alien had to call his supervisor. Supervisor had to call his supervisor. It took 4 hours to determine that the man needed to fill out Form 6239C to request the proper identification. But first he needed to complete Form 2847A to be allowed to request Form 6239C. Minho stopped welding and looked up. "They have conquered 2,847 worlds with this system." "Apparently," Min-soo replied. "Every other species just gave up and started filling out forms. They have never met a species that responds to paperwork with violence." "Then they are about to get a very educational experience," Minho said, returning to his work. The armor suit was almost complete. The fusion reactor hummed quietly in its chest, providing enough power to run a small city. The arms were equipped with industrial-grade tools that could cut through steel like paper. The legs were designed to carry 8 tons of weight without breaking concrete, though they were definitely going to break concrete. "Sir, we have a problem," said Sergeant Yoon Jawan, the test pilot who had volunteered to be the first person to wear the armor. "The aliens are getting impatient. They sent a message saying that humans are taking too long to understand their simple forms. Simple forms? Sumin laughed. I have 3 engineering degrees and I cannot understand what form 4291 is asking. For it is asking for our species' official position on interdimensional tax policy, Guan replied. I asked them what that meant, and they said I needed to complete Form 8832J to request an explanation. And where do you get Form 8832J? Minho asked. You have to fill out Form 2234B to request it. And where is Form 2234B? You get it after completing Form 1892. And where is Form 1892? Nobody knows. Minho sealed the final weld on the armor suit and stepped back. The machine looked like a walking tank designed by people who had never heard of the word subtle. It was painted military green and had the words problem solver written on the chest in large letters. No, 27 days until their deadline, Minho said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Do you think we will have enough time to build more suits? General Minsu watched as Jiwan climbed into the pilot seat of the armor. The machine came to life with a deep mechanical hum. Took his first step, the concrete floor cracked under the weight. When he took his second step, the crack spread across the entire room. We will make time, Minsu said, watching the massive machine move with surprising grace. They want to solve our problems with paperwork. We're going to solve their problems with engineering. The armor suit's eyes glowed red as Jiwan tested. The systems. Each movement was precise and powerful. The aliens had brought forms and filing cabinets to conquer Earth. Earth was about to show them what humans. Brought to solve problems, the morning started like any other day in Busan, until the aliens decided the entire city was in the wrong place. Chief Processor Victor stood in the middle of the town square, surrounded by his filing cabinets and clipboards, reading from a document that seemed to go on forever. Citizens of Busan, he announced through his translator device, your city violates Galactic zoning regulation 4729X. It is located 2.3 kilometers outside the approved residential zone for this planetary grid. You have 4 hours to relocate your city to the proper coordinates. The mayor of Busan, Kim Young-ho, stared at the alien in complete confusion. You want us to move our entire city? In 4 hours? Correct, Victor replied, checking his clipboard. Failure to comply will result in administrative penalties, including, but not limited to, forced relocation, property seizure, and filing of permanent non-compliance records. But there are 3 million people living here, the mayor protested. That is a management issue, Victor said. You should have filed Form 8394B for large population relocation. Permits before building your city in the incorrect location. We built this city hundreds of years ago. We did not know about your forms. Ignorance of proper documentation is not an excuse for non-compliance. That was when the ground started shaking. At first, everyone thought it was an earthquake. Then they saw what was actually causing the tremors. Sergeant Yoon Guan's power armor unit came around the corner like a walking building. Each step cracked the pavement and made car alarms go off for blocks around. The armor was 12 feet tall, 8 tons of metal and fury, painted military green with problem solver, written across the chest in letters big enough to read from space. The aliens stopped what they were doing and stared. This was not in their manual. This is Unit 1 to command. Giwan's voice boomed from the armor's external speakers. I'm visual on about 50 very confused bureaucrats. They appear to be trying to relocate a city using clipboards. Chief. Processor Victor frantically flipped through his emergency procedures manual. There was a section on natural disasters, a section on planetary rebellions, and a section on tax evasion. There was no section on giant humans in mechanical suits. Excuse me, Victor called out, his voice shaking slightly. Are you here to file the proper relocation paperwork? Wajuan's armor unit stopped walking and turned to face the alien. The mechanical head tilted slightly, like a confused dog, but a confused dog that could crush cars. No, Juan replied through the speakers. I am here to file a complaint about your customer service. The armor's right arm extended, and mechanical fingers the size of tree branches reached toward the nearest filing cabinet. The aliens watched in horror as Jiwan picked up the entire cabinet and examined it like it was a small toy. "Sir, you cannot touch official documents without proper authorization," Victor said, his voice getting higher. "You need to complete Form 2847A for document handling permissions first." "I think there has been a misunderstanding," Yuan replied calmly. "You see, humans have a different filing system." The armor's hand closed around the filing cabinet. Metal screamed against metal as the cabinet was crushed into a small cube. Papers scattered everywhere like confetti. "Stop!" Victor screamed. "You are destroying official documents. This is a violation of Administrative Code 9284C. "You are absolutely right," Jiwan agreed. "I am violating your code. Let me file an official complaint about that." The armor's other arm swept across a row of desks, sending computers, printers, and aliens flying in different directions. The mechanical giant began walking through the processing center like it was made of paper. "This is Unit 1 to command," G1 reported. "The aliens are trying to issue me a citation for property damage. I think they still do not understand the situation." Around the world, similar scenes were playing out. Captain Song Hajin's armor unit had just arrived at the processing center in Tokyo, where aliens were demanding that all humans learn to write in 17 different alien languages before filling out their forms. "This is Unit 7 to command." Hajin's voice crackled over the radio. "I am looking at a very large pile of paperwork. The aliens want me to read all of it before I can file a complaint about their service." "What is your response, Unit 7? Came the reply from headquarters. "I am mailing my response directly to them," Hajin replied. Her armor unit's massive fist punched through the center of the processing desk, sending papers flying everywhere. The aliens scattered like insects, clutching their clipboards and screaming. "About proper procedures, Command, this is Unit 7. I believe I have resolved our paperwork backlog." The aliens' energy weapons finally started firing, but the thin blue beams bounced off the armor plating like flashlights. These weapons were designed to stun uncooperative taxpayers, not to fight walking tanks. "Sir, our enforcement tools are not working," reported an alien officer to Vector, who was hiding behind an overturned desk. "Then file a report about equipment failure," Vector replied. "Use Form 6284J. "Sir, I think the forms are all destroyed." "Then file a report about the destroyed forms using Form 3947B. "Sir, that form was also destroyed." "Then file a report about the destroyed report forms using Form 2034. "Sir, everything is destroyed." Vector looked around at the chaos. His perfect administrative system was being demolished by creatures who solved problems by hitting them with metal fists. This had never happened before in 2,847 successful conquests. "This is highly irregular," he muttered, watching Juwan's armor unit use a desk as a hockey puck. Chief Processor Vector sat in his command center aboard the massive administrative ship, surrounded by screens showing the destruction of his perfect system. His 6 arms moved frantically across different keyboards, filing reports, emergency requests, and official complaints about the humans' completely improper behavior. "Sir, they just destroyed our processing center in London," reported his aide. Junior Processor Kixfell. The humans sent a mechanical warrior who introduced himself as Unit 12 and said he was there to deliver our mail. "Excellent," Victor replied, not looking up from his paperwork. "Did he complete the proper mail delivery authorization forms?" "Sir, he delivered our mail by throwing our own filing cabinets at our ship." Victor finally looked up. "That is not proper mail delivery procedure. File a complaint using Form 8394X. "Sir, I already tried. The human intercepted our complaint and sent it back to us attached to a missile. This was getting out of hand." In 2,847 successful planetary conquests, no species had ever responded to proper administrative procedures with violence. The collective's entire system was based on the simple fact that every intelligent species would rather fill out forms than fight. "Contact the Enforcement Division," Vector ordered. "We need them to restore order." "Sir, We downsized the enforcement division 300 years ago. We converted their budget to office supplies. What about the military department? We eliminated the military department 200 years ago. We decided that filing cabinets were more effective than weapons. And contact the security forces, sir. The security forces consist of 12 guards whose only training is in checking identification cards. Victor felt something he had never experienced before. It might have been panic, but since panic was not covered in any administrative manual, he decided to call it unexpected procedural deviation. On the surface of Earth, Major Yang Suyang was leading a squadron of 6 power armor units toward the aliens' main ship. The ship was the size of a small city, but it looked like a flying office building, with windows, balconies, and what appeared to be a parking garage for spaceships. "This is Gold Leader to all units," Suyang's voice crackled through the radio. "Remember, we are not here to destroy their ship. We are here to deliver their paperwork back to them." "Copy that, Gold Leader," replied Captain Park Min Jae-in. Unit 2. "I have about 50 pounds of their forms attached to my armor. Should I knock on their door first?" Negative, Unit 2. "We are special delivery. We go directly to the recipient." The power armor units activated their flight systems, small rocket engines that allowed them to jump incredible distances. They launched themselves toward the alien ship like mechanical meteors. The alien security systems immediately detected the incoming objects and began scanning them. The security computer was programmed to identify threats like missiles, bombs, and hostile ships. It was not programmed to identify giant humans in mechanical suits carrying filing cabinets. "Warning, unidentified objects approaching," the computer announced. "Classification, unknown. Threat level, cannot compute." "What do you mean, cannot compute?" asked the head of security, a nervous alien named Zector. "The objects appear to be mail delivery personnel, but they are approaching at missile speed. This does not match any known delivery protocols." The power armor units crashed through the ship's hull like metal cannonballs. The alien ship was built to withstand space debris and cosmic radiation, not to stop 12-ton war machines with industrial cutting tools. "This is Gold Leader," Suyang reported as her armor unit landed in what appeared to be a reception area. "I am currently in their lobby. They have a very nice waiting area with comfortable chairs and magazines." "Gold Leader, this is Unit 3, called Lieutenant Kim Sungmin. I have landed in what appears to be their cafeteria. The food here smells terrible." Unit 3, focus on the mission. "We are here to deliver paperwork." "Copy that, Gold Leader. I will deliver their lunch menus back to them at high velocity." The aliens inside the ship were running in circles, clutching clipboards and screaming about proper entry procedures. They kept trying to hand the armor units visitor badges and asking them to sign in. "Excuse me," called out a small alien to Suyang. "You need to complete Form 2847A for unauthorized entry before you can proceed." "I am not here for unauthorized entry," Suyang replied through her external speakers. "I am here for authorized delivery." Her armor unit's massive hand reached into a storage compartment and pulled out a crushed filing cabinet. "You left this on our planet. We are returning it to you." The filing cabinet flew across the room and crashed into a wall, scattering papers everywhere. "This is Gold Leader to all units. I have found their central filing room. It is ... extensive." Central filing room was the size of a football stadium, filled with filing cabinets that reached from floor to ceiling. There were thousands of them, each one labeled with numbers and letters that made no sense. Papers were organized by color, size, and what appeared to be smell. "Sir, they are in our central filing room," reported Kixfell to Vacta. "They appear to be tidying up. They're consolidating our filing system. They're putting all the papers in one place." "Where?" "In the recycling bin." The power armor units worked with mechanical efficiency, gathering centuries of carefully maintained paperwork and feeding it into the ship's waste disposal system. Forms that had taken decades to create were being processed in seconds. "This is Gold Leader. I believe we have successfully delivered their mail. All of it." The aliens watched in horror as their perfect administrative system was reduced to recycled paper. For the first time in their species' history, they had no forms to fill out, sir," whispered Kixfell. "What do we do now?" Victor looked around at the chaos. His entire worldview was collapsing. I think, he said slowly, we need to file a request for asylum. The small office in downtown Seoul looked like any other government building, except for one important difference. The people behind the desks were not human. They were tall, thin, aliens with multiple arms, and they all looked very unhappy. Next, called out Victor, who was sitting behind a desk that was too small for his 6 arms. He wore a name tag that said Immigration Clerk and had a small flag on his desk that read Former Galactic Overlord. A smaller alien approached his desk, carrying a thick stack of papers. Sir, I have completed Form 27A for asylum application. But I made an error in Section 12. Victor looked at the form with tired eyes. What kind of error? I wrote my name in black ink instead of blue ink. You will need to start over. Form 27A must be completed in blue ink only. Any errors require starting the entire application process again. The smaller alien's shoulders sagged. But sir, this is the 7th time I have had to restart this form. I do not make the rules, Victor replied, stamping rejected on the form. I only follow them. General Choi Min-soo walked through the immigration office, watching the former conquerors of the galaxy struggle with Earth's paperwork. He was now the head of the Department of Interplanetary Relations, and he had to admit he was enjoying the irony. How are our new residents adjusting? He asked Victor. Forms are challenging, Victor replied carefully, and we are not used to immigration paperwork that asks questions like, do you promise not to try to conquer this planet? And have you ever been involved in bureaucratic warfare? Those are important questions, Min-soo said with a straight face. We need to know if you are likely to cause trouble. Sir, we cause trouble with filing cabinets, responded with mechanical warriors. I think it is clear who would cause trouble in any future disagreement. Min-soo nodded. That is a fair point. How is your job working out? It is educational, Victor replied. I am learning how it feels to be on the other side of impossible paperwork. I am beginning to understand why the humans became violent. Crosstown, Dr. Lee Min-ho stood in the command center of the Space Force headquarters, watching technicians load the newest power armor units onto transport ships. The armor had evolved significantly in the past 6 months. The suits were still 12 feet tall and 8 tons of metal, but they now looked more professional. They were painted in official Earth colors and had diplomatic messages written in multiple languages. Earth Diplomatic Corps we deliver was painted on the chest of each suit in letters that could be read from orbit. The new armor looks good, said Colonel Park Ji-woo, who had been promoted to commander of the armor division. More polished than the first generation? Same message, though, Min-ho replied, watching the massive suits being secured in the cargo bay. We are going to the collective's former homeworld to establish diplomatic relations. Do you think they will cooperate? They will have a choice? They can negotiate with our diplomatic team, or they can negotiate with our diplomatic team while our diplomatic team is wearing 12-ton mechanical suits. That is not really a choice. It is a choice. It is just that one option is much more attractive than the other. The transport ships were loaded with 2 types of cargo: negotiation teams and power armor units. The negotiation teams were diplomats, translators, and legal experts who were prepared to establish peaceful relations with the former collective worlds. The power armor units were there to make sure the negotiations went smoothly. Sir, we are ready for departure, reported Captain Song Hai-jin, who had been promoted to lead the diplomatic mission. We have 12 armor units and 24 diplomatic staff. Member Min-ho said, this is a diplomatic mission. We are not going there to conquer anyone. We're going there to establish peaceful relations. Understood, sir. We will be very diplomatic. Good, and Captain? Yes, sir. If they try to hand you any forms, you know what to do. Hai-jin smiled. File them in the appropriate location, sir. The transport ships lifted off from Earth, carrying humanity's first interstellar diplomatic mission. The ships were painted white with blue stripes, the universal colors of peace. They also carried enough firepower to level a small city. But that was beside the point. On the former collective homeworld, remaining government officials watched the approaching Earth ships with nervous anticipation. They had heard stories about what happened to their administrative system. They had also heard stories about the humans' unique approach to problem solving. Sir, the Earth ships are requesting permission to land, reported a communications officer. What should we tell them? Asked the interim governor, a nervous alien who had been promoted when all his superiors fled to other galaxies. Tell them they are welcome to land. Make sure we have plenty of blue ink available. Blue ink, sir. Trust me, it is important. The Earth ships landed in the former collective capital, and the power armor units marched out in formation. They moved with mechanical precision, each step cracking the pavement. The diplomatic team followed behind them, carrying briefcases and folders instead of weapons. The message was clear. Earth was ready to talk. But if talking did not work, Earth was also ready to deliver their response personally, with overnight shipping, guaranteed delivery, and no signature required. The galaxy had a new filing system, and it was very efficient.